So these are good practices that have been applied in quite some environments. Whether they are best, you're going to figure that out, and you adapt them and change them to make them best for you. What is this Scrum thing anyway? Scrum is nothing else but a recipe to bake a simple, agile, and lean cake. Whether you like that cake, yes or no, that's up to you. You have to really turn it into something awesome, into that layer cake that you always wanted to achieve. That's up to you. It's not in the recipe. The recipe is just for the simplest cake. Has anyone of you heard about the Agile Manifesto? Yep, very good. So here's our first set of principles and values. What's remarkably about the Agile Manifesto is the very first word is individuals. And pretty much the second is interactions. It is all about people. And individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. It doesn't mean that processes and tools are unimportant. They are necessary, and they are important. But they're the center of individuals and interactions. And this is the one big failing that I see often when Scrum is applied. It is being seen as a process and a set of tools. And yes, it is, but it is process and tools to support this. So whenever you apply it, you have to check, do I actually achieve that individuals interact? Is this what I'm getting out of it? Yes or no? Working software or working product. Yeah? So the Agile Manifesto has its roots in software development in 2001 when some really grumpy about the state of affairs software developers got together and said, well, we want to do that differently. Quite renowned ones too, in Utah, in the skiing hut. I happened to be a software developer at the time, and I was part of an experiment by Volkswagen to build a software factory. So every individual developer, so all the HTML developers there, SQL there, C there, Java there, and they got specifications in and return code. And then all this code was supposed to work together for the bigger system. Did that work? Nope, not at all. But this was a state of affairs in 2001 for software development. And you find it still sometimes. Yeah? So working software over comprehensive documentation. It doesn't mean documentation is bad, but whenever you have documentation, make sure it has a purpose and it is being used and it is being maintained. If it is not used, don't write it. If it is not being maintained and will be outdated in 3 weeks, don't write it. If you need it to explain your product to your end user, super important. If you need it to keep your code maintainable, of course. Customer collaboration is more important than contract negotiation. So work together, build a partnership. Because yes, you need that contract, it is important. So you write the contract, then you put it in the bottom drawer, and you hope you never get it out again. Because if you get it out again to see what actually your partner should be doing or has been doing, then that project is already, it's dead, or it is in deep trouble. Would you agree? When you get the contract back out and check whether actually your partner is doing what they are supposed to do, you're usually in deep shit. Yeah. So talk, work together. And respond to change is more important than following that plan. 4 basic, simple principles. And when you try to apply Scrum, this is what it should help you to implement. You find the Agile Manifesto in 160 languages or so when you just Google it. So easy to find, but I will also share the presentation of it. With these 4 main principles, they go another 12. The small print. We follow these principles. Our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. Yeah? So Scrum is to help you satisfy the customer. If it doesn't deliver it, something is wrong, and it is Scrum. Why? I'm going to explain later. Early and continuous delivery of valuable software. Welcome changing requirements even late. Yeah? So again, this is what Scrum is trying to help you to do. Deliver working software frequently. Business people and developers must work together daily throughout the project. This is what the Agile Manifesto says, and this is again what Scrum is trying to help you to do. And if you apply Scrum by the book, and these people don't work together on a daily basis, Scrum is useless. As any other method would be. Build your projects around motivated individuals. Give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. This is what retrospectives and removal of impediments actually means. This is what Scrum means when it says remove impediments. Get that stuff out of the way so that your team can work. Yeah? The most efficient and effective method is to talk with each other. Yeah? It's individuals interacting. Working software, this is how we measure success. The Agile process promotes sustainable development. Again, yeah? So this is also what Scrum is trying to help you. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design. I like this one here in particular. I like them all. Simplicity. The art of maximizing the amount of work not done. We're going to see some examples of that. And we reflect on what we are doing and how we do things and change it and improve it. So if you do your Scrum and your retrospectives and you talk about all the problems, and then 2 weeks later you talk about the same problems again, and then about the same problems again, and then about the same problems again, you don't. Any ideas, suggestions, questions here? So the first set of values and principles that you are trying to implement with Scrum. Any objections, idea, questions? Yeah?
So there is some misconsistency in Scrum Manifesto. We say that software is over documentation and customer is over negotiation. But what will happen if we compare software with customer? Because the customer opinion can be wrong and it will really damage the end product. There is no answer to this question in Scrum Manifesto.
How would the customer's opinion damage the product?
So he can don't understand the whole process, the whole technique, and make some I don't know, unachievable targets using this particular framework.
I think we are talking about different customers. In Scrum Manifesto, customer is the end customer.
It is the user. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just the user. It's just an old lady with the user her phone.
So I'm talking about the person who ordered a work, so the work giver, not the end customer who is using the product.
The person who pays for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they come up and give you different ideas or unachievable goals. Well, Scrum says you have a commitment in the sprint planning, and the team can say no. So just say no. Can't be done.
So the team is over all processes, yeah?
In one instance, we're going to come to that. So please repeat your question if it isn't answered like 2 slides later. It's a very good question, and it is something that does happen. So I'm trying to explain how it should be, well, not by the book as a process, but how it should be like in terms of values and in principles. So please bring back the question if it isn't answered. So, first set of values. Here's the second. This is lean, this is a lot older. This is Toyota production system. This is how Toyota came out of nothing and beat the American and all other car industries to become the biggest car maker in the world. It is not the whole recipe, but it is an important bit. It's Taiichi Ohno's try to eliminate waste. So anything unnecessary, reduce it as much as you can. Build quality in. Yeah. We can't test quality in, we can only build quality in. So in any lean manufacturing, you have these unknown codes. Anyone on the production line can stop the whole production line because Shiri thinks we have a quality problem here. And it all stops. Create knowledge. Yeah, so learn, keep learning. I like this in particular, defer commitment. Take decisions as late as possible. We tend to make decisions as early as possible. So the first our customers ask is, we want X and Y. How long will it take? How much will it cost? What X and Y is, we have no clue really. But we are asked to give that commitment very, very early. And then it's not so unlikely that we get in difficulties later. Yeah? So the lean approach says defer commitment, take decisions as late as possible, because at that point you have the maximum knowledge. Deliver fast. Yeah? So when you start on something, get it through the pipeline as quickly as you can. So lean manufacturing and any lean methodology says stop starting, start finishing. So once you have started something, you get it through the system as quickly as possible. So you don't start on 3 new things. Very, very important, respect the people. I have been working for Maersk, world's biggest container shipping company, as a client for a couple of years. And they have lean principles embedded in their company. And when they employed a new manager, this manager was put on a container ship and sent around half the world into the remotest of harbors to see what that business is about, to see the dirt, to see the difficulties, to see all the problems. And only after a half year, they got a desk. And they developed A, a network, and B, a great respect for those people in the field who actually do the work. Here we have Gemba Gembutsu. Go to the place where things happen. So again, that's individuals and directions. It's maybe that is tough. So don't look at your small corner that your team performs well. In the end, from your customer has an idea to it is all the way out with their users. This is the whole process. And you might actually squeeze that day out in your corner, or there might be 3 weeks delay elsewhere. So rather, try to get these 3 weeks down. It's probably much more valuable. So another 7 principles. And let's dive a bit deeper into the wastes. So any sort of transportation. So moving in our world, it is knowledge. Any knowledge transfer that is necessary, or code transfer, or unfinished part transfer from one person or one team to another, is we lose something. We lose time and we lose usually knowledge, tacit knowledge that you can't even write down. So the stuff that you talk about in a coffee kitchen, and not with these guys you hand over to. Wasteful. Inventory. So starting something that isn't finished. We have inherited from a different department our iOS and Android applications. They have store ratings well above 4.5. But we inherited them with, for Android, 1,000 open bugs a year ago. So there were 1,000 bugs found. Our customers were happy. But QA guys put a lot of effort into finding all these bugs. They were on very specific devices and very specific circumstances. So a lot of effort and time has been invested in that, and they got never fixed. The QA guys were frustrated because they invested all this work And the developers were frustrated because they were always looking at these 1,000 bugs. So we just closed them. No, we never get over 30 again, because we have the stop-the-line approach. Whenever we approach 30, we stop the whole feature production line, we fix these bugs, we try to understand how we got to this number, and then we carry on. So, but inventory. Yeah? So if you have specifications for the next 2 years to work on, that's inventory. Probably 3/4 of those are wrong at the point you actually start to implement them, because you have learned so much in the meantime. So the further commitment. Inventory. Motion. People that need to move around. Wasteful. Waiting times. You know, anything that started and then wait somewhere, that's obviously waste. So you try anything that started to get it through the chain as quickly as possible out to your end users. This is what made Toyota successful, because any part that you have to build in order to build a car is an investment. And if that sits in the warehouse or it takes long, so as quickly you assemble them and actually can sell a car, the more successful you are. Southwestern Airlines, they made it possible to, through optimizing their load off and load on process in their airplanes, to run the same number of flights with 2 airplanes where other airlines needed 3. That was a tremendous success. So wait, overproduction, building stuff that no one needs, that never happens to us, right? Again, so all these Scrums try to help you to implement. Of course it does happen. We build stuff where a customer layer says, so we used. And it actually adds complexity, so we have to maintain that stuff as well. Overprocessing, so heavyweight processes, difficult. And last but not least, defects. Any bug is wasteful. Any ideas, additions, comments, doubts at that point? Yep.
Again, that's about this 1,000 bugs that you found. Also, you mentioned that the end users were quite happy, but you decided to get on those bugs and fix them first, and only then get to features.
We closed them.
You dropped all
We
those.
closed them.
Okay.
All of them.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
It's too frustrating for everyone.
So most of the users, you mentioned that those were some very specific devices, and you realized that not so many people use them.
If any of those was important, they would come back, and then we assess them. So now we have a triaging process. So any new coming bug, we assess and say, like, okay, it's facing enough users, it's important enough to fix. It is reasonable for the price that we will have to invest. But yes, we fix it within 4 weeks, or within 2 weeks, or not. These are the 3 buckets we have. Either we fix it quick, so now-ish, or not. We don't have an option to fix it later. Doesn't happen. Got it. Any others?
Well, it's been said that the overproduction is bad in this cycle, but because you shouldn't go ahead of the demand. But what if you will create this demand?
Well, how do you know that you will create it?
I don't know.
There you go. So as soon as you're sure it's going to be used, it's not overproduction anymore. So overproduction per se is something that is not going to be used. What we often see is that we elaborate very detailed, great features, bring them out to end users, and then figure out they don't use it. So Flickr went out as something completely different than it ended up with. All that investment they could have saved if they had found easier ways to implement their gaming and get earlier feedback to see that gaming is not interesting. But the sharing part is. So if you know there is going to be, if you're sure there's going to be the demand, go ahead and build. But if you don't know that, try to figure it out before. Try to create the knowledge before you actually invest. This is what we do through A/B testing. So these are very lightweight features. It's very, very minimal. They don't necessarily have the code standards that we want them to have later. so that we cheaply can figure out, okay, there's an interest out there, it's going to be used. Then we build that. It's just an example. Microsoft Word, 80% of the users would be happy with 20% of the functionality. Their service out there.
I have a question about deferring commitment. So if I heard you correctly, it's your personal favorite. But I assume even in a product development company, you're not completely independent, live alone the service company. So you always depend on investors, on stakeholders, and customers, what have you. So what if those who you depend on require commitment building? What is your approach? Are you hiding from them? Or?
No, I'm not. I try very, very hard to not give this commitment at the start because I can't. I would have to lie to them. And I tell them, if you want a commitment, I will have to lie to you because I don't know. And I can't know. But here's what I can offer. I can give you an estimate what's possible within your expected time frame and budget now. And I give you an update every week or every 2 weeks. You get an up-to-date update. And as we learn, it's going to be more and more accurate. And yeah, so I make sure that you have that feedback. It's very, very hard to convince. Yeah? But the only other option you have is either you know exactly what you will be building because you have done it 20 times before, that's different. Or you have to lie to them. And I'd rather not.
And there are multiple options in between, right? And if you are in a competitive environment when you are competing against someone who...
You try to win that contract, you pay, yeah, you probably have more effort than it costs, and then you hope that through maintenance you get that back in. I've been there. Yes, this is how it works. If your customer forces you to do so, I don't like it. And I guess you don't like it. It is difficult, it's very hard to overcome. But here you can build, so what you could do is, you go that route and have that contract, but still give them that continuous feedback what's actually happening in the project very early. So that then at the end, when time and budget is spent, you have the surprise that the airport actually still doesn't work. Berliner, you remember. But that you give them still that feedback. And this is how you build trust. And next time they say, okay, we understand it's all going to happen differently. So we want that feedback and we give you a bit more leeway. That is a long-term relationship.
But what if up front we are talking about big contract?
Well, we can have a chat later if you wanted to. There are excellent models out there how to do that. But we don't have the time here now. So it's a very specific, important question. Good. So, Scrum. When we try to implement Scrum, we are actually trying to do so to implement Agile and Lean. And here is the idea of Scrum, how to do that. I used to work for Boris Gloger Consulting, so it's one of the, I just nicked it for them with their permission. So, we have a product idea. So this is the business plan. It's not very inspiring, it's important to have. First of all, we create that vision, that purpose, why we are actually doing this. The vision allows us to build something bigger, something that surprises our customers, where the business plan does not. So we do that. Then we have a product backlog. A product backlog contains user stories. A user story is a single sentence. So it has the minimal investment at the time that you could have. It's just a single sentence for you to capture something, a problem that you want to fix in the future. And it is a promise for a future conversation. As late as possible, with the maximum knowledge, you actually specify all the details. So you groom and maintain that backlog, that list, so that everyone has an overview. This is our current knowledge roadmap towards that vision. These are all the items we know currently about, and this is the order we currently believe we should be working on them to achieve that vision. That's all it is. It is not detailed specifications. Because detailed specifications would be inventory, and we didn't want that. And very often I've seen that. In particular, when you use tools like Jira, they are great databases. You can put all sorts of stuff in there. so easily the work for the next 2 years. That is documentation overwork. Then you have your sprint planning 1. In your sprint planning 1, this is the latest possible moment before or at the start of the sprint where you actually specify all the details. Here is where you invest into something that you are going to build now. You don't invest earlier. Sprint planning 2, you figure then out what the technical design and specification is to build this. So you have your mini waterfall here, but all the elements for the waterfall you define at the very start of the sprint. So the first, if it is a 2-week sprint, the first half day you spend specifying exactly only those items that you will be working on in that sprint and nothing else. As late as possible, with the maximum knowledge with all the other sprints that you have been working on, and also no overinvestment, so no waste, because you invested in as much as you believe you can deliver within the next 2 weeks. This is the idea of the sprint planning, nothing else. So at the end of the sprint planning, you have the best possible plan with the current knowledge to execute against in the next 2 weeks. By the way, all these are not meetings, they are workshops. They have outcomes. They have defined outcomes where the team collaborates and works together to create these outcomes. They are not meetings where someone presents to everyone else and everyone else leans back like we here at the moment and consumes. It's not. And then you execute against your plan and hopefully have as little surprises as possible. There are always a few, obviously. So life happens while you are busy planning otherwise. And at the end, you get end-user feedback for your product increment. Look, this is what we have built. Use it, hands-on, and we observe you how you use it. Have a conversation with them, or ideally observe your end users how they use the new feature. This is the best possible way to get that product feedback. Because very often it is very difficult for them to tell you, but you will see that they actually use it in a different way than you intended them to use it. And they say, oh, it's actually harder for them than we thought. If we rearrange our mask like X and Y, it could be easy. And in a conversation that is very, very difficult to convey. So this is about your end user's feedback, ideally, end user feedback for your product increment. So it should also be something tangible, visible, and done. And then you sit down and say, how was this sprint? What was good about it? What should we keep, or what should we do more? What was helpful? And what really sucked? What didn't work so well? How can we do that better in the next sprint? And not moan about it. Define 3 action items to fix up to maximum 3 things in the next sprint, but fix them. Don't try to fix 20. Doesn't work. Fix 3. If 3 are hard, fix 2. Fix 1. But fix it. That's Scrum. That's all. That is the whole recipe. All the rest, you read about it, forget it. This is all it says. And how it could work for you, it's for you to figure out. Other than Group or other of these extensive process handbooks that try to describe for every possible situation an answer, this is giving you the minimal possible framework. And if you have your values and principles in mind, it's going to help you to implement. So, it is about the people, individuals, and directions. Here are processes and tools, and this is how they are minimally defined, as minimal as possible, because the magic happens on this side. This was the boring intro. I hope it wasn't so boring. Any comments at that point? So what I said is, how have I seen Scrum fail? It has been understood as a complete process. If you apply it, you're going to be successful. No. If you apply it and keep in mind what you actually want to achieve and adapt it in a way that you achieve these things, then it works. It is a very good starting point for half a year before you then actually come up with something that is much more awesome than Scrum could ever be.
What metrics you use to evaluate if of Scrum was successful or not? And how do you evaluate effectiveness of it? Like, do you compare it with other methodologies, or you have some universal metrics to evaluate?
This is a very good and extremely tricky question. If I had that answer, I would be rich. And I have, as a consultant, been asked many, many times, and we are currently also trying to do that. We have introduced some process metrics, as how many releases can be released successfully, how many A/B tests do we do, happiness of teams, bug indexes. So it's a whole system of how do we come to have that system? Don't introduce Agile, Lean, or Scrum because it's cool. This is the worst reason to do it. Introduce it if you find there's a problem where you think that could help. Then find a measurement for that problem or that set of problems that you are trying to solve and measure against those. Because in the end, this Agile and Lean and Scrum are only means to build great projects and products. And if that doesn't succeed, they're worthless. And you can build great projects, great products with waterfall, with Kanban, with any other methodology. It is possible. I believe it's hard, but it's possible. It's not right and wrong, good, bad. It's just a tool. But so my advice from what I've learned is understand what problem you are trying to fix and introduce in this stuff, because it is actually very expensive to do so. Because at the start, it will slow you all down until you have understood how it all works. For Scrum in particular, you have to overthrow your complete organizational structure very often, because you didn't have that product owners before and Scrum Masters. You have to train people. You have to bring different teams together. So this is quite an investment for Scrum to get going. So make sure this is the set of problems we are trying to fix. This is how we know that we have this problem. This is how we measure that we have this problem. These are our indices, and we expect them to get done beforehand. Because it is there. So Scrum, for the segment of Scrum, don't. Never. I am not religious about this stuff. I think it's good tools. It's great stuff. But it's not the only. It's not necessarily always the best. Sorry, that wasn't like, it wasn't the golden answer. I don't think it exists. So it should help to solve your problem. Good. What I would like to do with you for the next or for the remaining time is to go to 2 or 3 exercises, starting to build an actual product in a very, very lightweight, lean way. That's what we are trying to do. And this is a product I would like to build with you. It's the Grania. My mother is, it's not even my granny, my mother is 85 years old. And she lives alone. Not too far from us, but alone. She enjoys very good health. So she goes out for sports and with her friends and all sorts of things. It is really great. There are many, many cases where elderly in particular, but also other vulnerable people, at home alone, have an accident, and they are found 3 days later, either very, very ill or dead. In this day and age, really, we believe we can help. They're awesome, yeah? They're these mobile phones out. They have around 20 sensors in them. They're cheap, they're available. They're probably difficult to use for an elderly, but it could be a good tool set, and it's readily available. So we want to build something with mobile phones only, and we want to partner with the Red Cross because we want to make a business of that. And for every successful ambulance that they send out, they actually get some money, and we get a very little share. So this is our business model. We will get medical help to any person in distress when they are alone and others can't help. In doing so, we reduce suffering and preventable losses of life. Do you want to do that? Yeah? Okay. So, as we have very limited time, this is actually an exercise that in a training we do over a whole day. I have selected 5 short exercises where we might be able to cover 2 or 3 in the remaining time. Probably more 2 or 3. Let's see. These are my proposals. let's try to find a way to take that customer viewpoint for us. Yeah? How do we actually change perspective and understand what they are and how they are? Write user stories. Yeah? So come up with problem statements for these users. Prioritize these user stories. Yeah? So what should we build first and what next? Sizing or estimation, always a big issue. And how could we actually convey that bigger picture? So you have your backlog and you have all the items in there in a priority order. But then if you look at that backlog, they seem sort of unrelated. It's like a random order. After a time, you just lose that overview. Here is a simple tool to keep or maintain that overview of the bigger picture. There are 5. There's a flip chart at the back. And here a few, somewhere are a few markers. Where's my box with markers?
We
have some. Okay, so take them along and make just a tick in 2 of the boxes that you would like to do. And let me count the one with the most, and the 2 with the most votes we try to perform here. That's a quite large group.
Just
it's going to
2?
be challenging, that's going to be
Just 2.
everyone has 2 votes. Okay. Yeah. And you can put 2 in one box or 2 in 2 boxes. Good. And let's have a quick count there. A user story is one single simple sentence. It has 3 elements. Who? What? And most important, why? So the sentence is, I as user role want a function or feature so that one of my problems is solved. The third part is often forgotten. It is the hardest and it is the most valuable. Because this allows you to have a conversation about other potential solutions to the same problem. That might be cheaper, better, or both. So always put, and that is your whole user story. At that point, no acceptance criteria, no details, no scribbles, no nothing. It's just that. Who wants it? What do they want and why?
Quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Does the why have to be a problem, or it can be some improvement, or can we call it problem still?
The why should be a problem because any user story should deliver user value. The absolute minimal value that you should be delivering is that you can learn by giving something in the hand of your users where you assume you solve a problem and then see whether you do yes or no. But yes, so you shouldn't just make it super beautiful if it really doesn't help the user. So it always should have even a great. Don't get me wrong. A great design is a really, really important property of any product. But it is a great design because it is easy to use. It is unproblematic to use. So there's a purpose behind a good design. It makes it easy to use. Okay, so this is your user story. Very often you use a user role here. What we have skipped now, and that's fine, is personas. Personas is a concept that comes from UX mostly, but it is very, very useful also for you and your teams. What you basically try to create is a tangible virtual user of your system. So you think of a person who could be a typical user of your system, you give her name, you give her date of birth, hobbies, technical knowledge, like you give her a real persona and describe the circumstances under which this persona actually uses that software. That is the persona ID. Okay, we have just, as a user role, I want a function feature so that a problem is solved. Here's some A4 paper on the tables, and I have some more. I would ask you to work in groups of 4. Yeah, so find partners to work in groups of 4. Ideally, people you have never been working with before. Take some of that and that A4 paper here. I hope it is enough. You just pick it up here, what you need. And as the 4, you write user stories for our Granny app. You just write them on paper. Actually, landscape. Each group, 3 user stories. You have 10 minutes time. Sorry, I was a bit some simple tool to help you to write them. I forgot about it. Sorry. So give me a minute. To help you with writing the user stories, here's one more bit of information that you might find helpful. For user stories, there are the invest criteria. Anyone of you have heard about them?
Yes.
Yes. Can you tell me what they are? So, invest, just easy to remember. A user story should be independent. Yeah, so, ideally, you can build them without building other stuff. Ideally. Sometimes it's not possible, but it should be negotiable. So, there should be room for negotiation, which you achieve through the so that you can actually come up with other possibilities. So they shouldn't be as granular and very small that there's no room for leeway. They should be valuable. Build a database model or build a database or build a backend component is not valuable from an end-user perspective. So that's not a user story. They should be estimatable. So they shouldn't be too specific, but they should be specific enough that you can say, oh, there is something big or small. So we have a rough idea what it is about. They should be simple. Simple as in you have one of those, one of those, and one of those. If you want 3 functions to solve a problem, you have 3 user stories. If you want to solve the problem for 2 people, it's 2 different user stories, because the solution layer might be different. So split them into smaller. And last but not least, they should be testable. So when you write a user story, think about how you would know that it has been delivered. How would you test it? Not test in a sense of unit test or acceptance test, or how would you know it's done? So that is to help specific, the invest criteria. Sorry, I should have brought it up earlier. You get an extra 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Carry on. How are you doing? How many do you have? 2, 1. Okay. Good. And I give you a bit more time. I've just realized, apparently, they told me. Okay. Time's up. Yeah, for the moment. So what you realize is you should give this more time than we can hear now. We're not going into the details of all your stories you have. I'm more interested in how it was for you.
Quite difficult to feel yourself like a granny.
Yes, difficult.
Understand her needs, what she wants to be in this application, and what functionality must have.
Very good. What else?
But on the other hand, like after we started, we then basically really, like got on track. So we understood that 3 stories is not enough because the application has to cover much more of like scenarios and functions for it to be as useful as it can be for grannies,
So
let's
you
say.
probably could have gone on for several hours.
Yes. So it's like, wow, there are so many possibilities like to make the application as great as it could be. And then we also realized that after we started and had the first story, we were like, then okay, that's simple. We need this, we need this, we need this, we need that. So the hardest part was to really get into the mind and to really understand like what and how, and then it became easier.
Thank you. What else?
I think it's really important to understand that our client is not our own plate. Our client is her relatives, her son probably, because old lady will never get even notice about this application. She's never been aware of this. So we must point on functions that are very important for relatives.
Yeah.
Not,
True.
Not,
Yeah.
not
And this is what you have discovered. Cool. Anything else? What I've observed is that all of you had a very, very animated conversation, and you were working as a group, as a team. What you've done basically is you individuals have interacted with this very simple tool. It's A4 paper and a marker and a task. How about you sit down with your client and do that exercise for longer than 10 minutes? Because then they understand what you understand, what they tried to say. You can give them feedback. You can give them ideas that they might never have had. So all this could be a moment of awesome also for your customers, because they have the feeling you understand and you have the feeling you understand. And the actual problem that they are trying to solve, not what they are asking you to build. And this could be a start, it could be the start of a very, very good relationship. If you can get your customer to sit down with you and do that, which is hard, I understand. I've been working with insurances and with automotive. I know how difficult they are. Okay.
I have a question. What if your customers are in a different country, for example? How it's possible to meet them to use this exercise?
Go on a plane, go there. Yeah, so I mean it, it's not a joke. Go there, you invest these 2 days, and you save weeks, if not months.
Okay, and what if it's impossible because your management thinks that
Yeah, so
it's too expensive?
if your management thinks and you still want to make it happen. What I've often used is a very, very simple tool called Trello. Trello.com. For all sorts of collaboration. So you set up a video conference where you have one computer that actually shares the room and the individuals and who talks. Yeah? So there is some effort. Some companies have that ready, like ours, we are lucky there. Others not. Yeah, but it could be Google Hangout, as simple as that. But actually that you can see each other face to face and have a conversation. And then have a second computer where you set up a Trello board. And Trello, what it allows you to do is it allows everyone to write cards and pop up and be visible for everyone else. It is super simple and super powerful. Yeah? So this is your A4 paper. Use a Trello board. But again, then just write one sentence per card. That will actually also help for the next exercise. So do I still have time or not? Sorry, I had been told I have 90 minutes, and I've just realized I don't.
Maybe 2-3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, that's sad, because then we can't do the second story. Then I take these 2 or 3 minutes to explain briefly what the other exercises are. Yeah? So just to give you, they're very similar. They're paper-based. So there's magic estimation. Now you take your stories and you take some paper and put the Fibonacci numbers on them and put them on the floor, all the way 1 to 100. And then you ask everyone to put their story in that system of estimates. So you get like columns, like how big is that compared to each other? With zero knowledge, it's just gut feeling, but that is what estimation is about. But you have an idea that this thing is 3 times as big as that. With current knowledge, that's all. Yeah? It's inaccurate. It is an estimate. Of course it is inaccurate. Otherwise it won't be truth.
So it's like
but it's the best we have with zero investment. Yeah? So silently you put your cards, and then you have a look and look at the other cards, and anything you disagree with, you pick up and put elsewhere. And you have one observer, and if any card moves more than one category, you put a dot on. Yeah? So then you have information, what is small, what is big, and you have the information, what is disputed, so what do you need to bring in the next backlog grooming to discuss, and what is big that needs breaking down. 5 minutes, 10. It's a very good exercise. Now just to get that first gut feeling, it's hardly any investment. That would be estimation. For story mapping, your second choice, you do something very similar, only here you put your value stream. Delivery to Granny, emergency call, received at dispatcher center, emergency goes out, emergency arrives, finds patient, information to relatives. Yeah, so like different topics that you have, and then you put the user stories that belong to these topics underneath in priority order. The most important at the top, the least important at the bottom. Yeah, so emergency call, I can press a button and get a call first, and that I can actually cancel a call further down. Yeah, so you have a priority order within the value stream. That gives you an overview what actually you want to do for the different buckets. And then you put separators, and then you bring them in this priority order, and then you put separators. For my minimal viable product, for the initial release, so underneath, so for emergency call you want to do 2 stories, for relatives 0. Yeah? Minimal viable product, we do that later. So you put a separator underneath, and you see everything about the separator is my first release, and then there's the other stuff. And again, take a different color and do the same and go through the whole line again. Say, okay, this is going to be my second release with current knowledge. And my third. You bring this on a big wall, and you can move things up and down easily. Yeah? So this is your friend here. Again, very tangible. It's in the room, it's visible, it's there. So every employee comes in and like, oh, these are the priorities. This is what we are currently working on. They have conversations like pointing this and that. It's impossible to do with 0. I'm sorry to say. I like the tool, but it's impossible to do. Yeah, so user stories have them up the wall. On other topics that we have, prioritization, again. First user story put in the middle. The second user story, is it more important? Or is it less important? You put it here or there. The next. So you divide and conquer. Again, there's a group exercise so that you get all the opinions. It's just a tool to interact, have conversations, understand why does it go there. So you don't present to your team, it goes there. You have with the team the conversation, it goes there because, we understand, makes sense. But it should really go there because we have the dependency. I see. Okay, we swap. Personas, I explained that already. Yeah, so the simplest way is flip chart paper, a picture of printout, or if you draw dice, picture of a person, what are their hobbies, like some private criteria, and what is the context they are using our application. That is that. Again, paper, up walls, so that you actually, eventually your team will start to talk about Granny Smith. If you want some examples on the way out, I have prepared some, but you wanted to write your own user story, which is great. So if you want to have a look, I put them there. Sorry for the mess up with the time. I just, until 10 minutes ago, I assumed I had the 90 minutes that were in the email. The schedule is different. But then we just waited for Torsten.
Thank you.